Boys and girls, welcome back to the Commercial Real Estate Starting From Scratch podcast with me, your host, John Kleisch, on episode number 29. If this is your first time tuning in, really appreciate you doing so. Would love to hear how you found out about this place. To give you an idea of what this podcast is about, I am documenting my journey into the commercial real estate space. Named it Starting From Scratch because your boy here had no experience in commercial real estate, no owned commercial real estate, and thought it would be cool to document the process from the very beginning all the way up until however far we end up taking this thing. Knowing me, I will be buying lots of buildings and will grow a decent sized portfolio. So it would be cool to have my listeners watch me get bigger as we go and everything like that. And I feel like most people tune in here just to listen to my pain and suffering. So here we are. I guess a little bit more about me. Phoenix, Arizona. I started this podcast with $0 in commercial real estate, and now I own two commercial buildings. One is an industrial building that is mostly for automotive tenants, and then the other one is an office building in Sun City, Arizona. Valued somewhere around $2.5 million. I feel like it changes every day, but I'm just going to stick with $2.5 million until we get a much more solid valuation, and then I can bump up that number a little bit more, God willing. So this week's episode, what are we going to talk about? Thunderbird. I feel that I got some good updates to speak about here, and pretty interesting. What I like about this is that it lets me kind of speak out loud and my thoughts to put my thoughts out there to see if that kind of makes sense. I know in the past I've made up my mind on certain things, made a podcast about it, and then I was like, you know what, I'm going to change my mind. So Thunderbird has been going, slow, but was expected. I always need to tell myself that because I knew that this was not a building that was going to be leased up right away. I know that office in general is a little bit slow, especially Sun City office and the type of office that we have. I knew it was not going to be something that would get leased up right away. However, now living through it, living in it, and it hurts. It does. It definitely does. But neither here nor there. We've had two interested parties where they went out and saw the place. The first guy, nationally credited Sleep Center, ended up just completely ghosting us. So I imagine they're not interested in leasing from us if the guy went dark. And then the second one, which came in, I believe I mentioned it on the podcast last week, from Regus, which is a national, I wouldn't call them a tenant. They do co-working spaces. I was under the impression that they go out and sign master leases and then lease up the spot, and then they keep whatever profit they get from there. However, I think this is going to be a really cool, interesting podcast because I learned a lot, my broker learned a lot, and it's an interesting concept. So, co-working, for those of you that don't know, this whole office is 7,781 square feet. This portion that is vacant right now is about 6,400-ish. And what they do is instead of leasing it to one tenant that has like 10 or 15 employees, they go out, they hire an employee or multiple employees. They get the place set up. They get up desks. They hook up with the internet. They do all of that, right? So that way they can lease out desks or offices to individuals or a couple different people or smaller companies that need a smaller space. It's affordable for them, flexible lease terms. The rate, you get a higher price per square foot since you're renting out desks and everything. It's kind of similar to almost like an Airbnb or a room share type of service where you're renting out your house by the room, right? As opposed to renting it out totally. You get a little bit more money. And these guys are everywhere. They have a huge presence in, I know, Dallas, Texas. They have like 30 or something like that. I know here in Phoenix, they sent me the list. They've got like 13 or something like that in our area. And we actually, when we first started, my former business partner we actually leased out a spot from Regus. And I think they do a great job. So when they were interested, I was pretty stoked. And then my broker had a meeting with their broker and they talked about it, the whole presentation, and I got numbers and everything like that. It definitely got less exciting after I heard about it because there are some downsides to it for sure. Now, the upsides are fantastic, but there is a major downside to it as well. So let's just start with the poop. They do not sign a lease. It is a partnership program. And what they do is they take care of all of the management and everything. We don't have to do anything, but we have to pay for it. So in this case, they are estimating, at first they estimated $86,000 worth of TI, tenant improvement. And at first I was like, what the are they wanting 86 grand for? I spent about $90,000, maybe 86,000 on the remodel itself. So I'm thinking, what are they going to do? Paint, redo the flooring, whatever. And then I realized I was like, oh, shoot, you know what? They're probably going to need, they're talking desks, internet, printers, power cables, refrigerators, all of that type of stuff to get this facility up to a proper working co-space. And like I mentioned, this company's legit. They do a fantastic job. Really, 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 really impressive stuff. So that number made a little bit more sense. So we have to then come up with about, they came up with 86 grand. The guy's like, hey, it could probably be closer to 76,000. And then after we were a little bit interested in the whole deal, the guy went out to the facility and liked it a lot more than they initially did. So now they're going to tweak their numbers down. I relayed to my broker what our concerns were with their offer. So they're going to tweak it and we'll see. Maybe we can get something going. I don't know. But for starters, have to come out of pocket at least $76,000. I shouldn't say at least. $76,000 is the most that we'd have to come out of pocket for tenant improvement. And then they got to go get this place leased up, right? And it's not like they just turn it on and they fill the place up. It takes a while. So they're planning on about a year-ish to get it going, which means the first year they're expecting total revenue to be $56,000 is what they had. Our other spots rented at $2,000 a month, so $24,000 a year plus $56,000. That's $80,000 of revenue that we will bring in, of gross rents that we will bring in. Now, this building costs us somewhere about $120,000 a year if we have to pay for all of the utilities and everything like that. The HOA is $1,000 alone. So do the math real quick. That means year one we would lose $40,000 to $50,000 depending on what's going on. So the big downside is coming out of pocket, $76,000 right off the clip, and then having to eat $40,000 to $50,000 losses over that first year. What does that end up being? $40,000, $120,000, $130,000. Now that's a tough pill to swallow, especially because we're already had to buy the building, $618,000, had to remodel it, and then now we're paying interest and everything like that on it already, $245 a day. To all my listeners that have been listening for a while, they know that number because I've mentioned it quite a bit. But either way, and so coming out of pocket, not making money, and then my big concern is the counterparty risk, right, of having Regis come in here and then it underperforms, right? Like, that sucks. Imagine forking out 150 G's and then just getting your balls stomped on and not making any money, which would just absolutely be the worst, right? Because then you're out of the initial money and then you're out of the money that you were expecting to make for rent. Now, those are the negatives. The upside is pretty tempting, though. Since they are doing a co-working space, I mentioned in the beginning that the price per square foot is considerably higher than if we were to lease it to a whole tenant. To give you an idea, right now we're listed at like $22 a square foot, and based on the numbers that here. Let me pull up these exact numbers here. When I mean exact, I mean exactly what they are projecting. To give you an idea, let's do some quick math. $20 a square foot. No, say $22 a square foot times 7,781. We're looking to bring in, that's a little bit high. Let's call it $20 a square foot just in case. We were looking to bring in about $155,000 total. Total with our other tenant too. So I'm going to remove that because that kind of convolutes it. Let's bring that back down. 24,000. So we were planning on bringing in from that vacant side $131,620. Now, they are projecting that year 2 to be bringing in $305,000, year 3, $372,000, and then in year 4, they would be expecting $416,000. Woo! Now, that is why I am entertaining these deals, because those numbers sound fantastic. Also, I believe I forgot to mention that Regis's cut, they just take 16% off of that number. And again, they take care of everything. They hire the people. They do the build out. They operate like the snacks that they sell. They operate the virtual offices. They operate the conference room. All of that. We would still be responsible for the maintenance of it. Light bulbs go out, something breaks, water leaks, whatever. They do take care of the janitorial on their end too, which I thought was pretty neat because that's not cheap neither, which does help out. So those are the downsides. The upsides are those numbers, and then like the price per square foot that they're getting like $50 to $60 per square foot, which is just nuts, which is awesome. So you're getting 3 times the rent, and then you're splitting you're obviously lopping off that 16% fee off the top, which definitely adds up. But with the numbers that they're projecting, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but it definitely makes it a lot more easier to swallow. Now, I'm a dummy, and I got this illustrative commercial overview, and it's like pretty hard to decipher. I had to do like a 40-minute call with my broker and go over line by line, and he's never seen anything like it neither. So we were both just kind of like going through it together and figuring it out, and I got a pretty good idea of what it looks like. And man, the upside, golly, that kind of gets me excited. But to go through a year and a half, a year at least, of losing money while they get this place rented up, that I just don't know how that works, because Big Daddy over here doesn't have 150 G's just to put into this building right now. If we were to do this deal, the only way this shakes out is if we bring on another partner that wants to bring in that money, and then we have to do an equity split. Right now, it's just 50-50, me and my partner, with no outside investors that are equity. We do have debt. We have a primary hard money loan on it, and then a secondary loan on it as well that we use for the rehab. So we have debt partners, no equity. I love having equity because that's why I'm in this game. I am doing this to produce wealth right down the line in the future, delay that gratification and build wealth slowly over time. So equity is really, really important to me. However, I am not afraid to give up equity to get the deal, because the way this is shaking out, this could be a fantastic, fantastic deal. They, Regis particularly, is very, very, very interested in making their presence bigger on the west side, which is where this property is. The building is set up like perfectly for how they like to operate their offices and maximize their space. It's got a gorgeous entrance, a big winding staircase, and tons of individual offices. So that way they can chop them up. And guys, they're putting multiple people in offices as well. It's not like everyone gets their own office. And that's how they're really able to drive that price per square foot numbers. They did send over some great information on other buildings in the area, on when they opened, what their vacancy rate was. Like, to give you an example here, they took over one on January 1st of 2024, so like 2 years ago. They opened it, they started it, and they were at 21% capacity. Last month, or this month here, they were at 78%. So 2 years later, all the way up to 78%. Now, you might be, oh, wow, 78% doesn't sound that great. It seems like a lot of these are in that 70 to 80% category. Some are at 100, 91%, 92, 91, 100, 93, 71, 78. So these offices don't need to be 100% to make money. In fact, one of their flagship properties on the west side, definitely not their flagship property overall, but on the west side specifically, let's see here, it is called the Peoria Center at Arrowhead. And these numbers are just out of control. They're getting $80 a square foot. And this building is quite a bit bigger. It's about double our size. And I don't know how this is set up. I'm assuming this is, I want to go by there and take a look. I'm assuming it's like your big traditional wide open, just standard like vanilla box office where they have just cubicles, because they have 68 offices and 161 desks. To give you an idea, our place is half the square footage, but we only have 15 offices and they have 68. So I'm just thinking, holy cow, how do they cram all these people and all these offices in there? So I want to go by, take a look, and see how they're set up. But $80 a square foot is just absolutely insane to me, and the upside is just tremendous. And the other thing that one of my friends, shout out Dane, for bringing this up too, he's like, I wonder how that valuation works. Do you still value it at the same off of the NOI, and then you just take off those expenses that's getting paid to Regis? I think so, right? Because at the end of the day, if the building's making X amount of money, it's making X amount of money, right? Like, who cares what Regis's cut is at that point? If it's producing tons of profit, that building is just going to be worth more money. So another thing is they want to do a 10-year lease, or a 10-year agreement, I should say. I shouldn't say lease because it's not a lease. A 10-year agreement, and basically a partnership agreement. So that's cool, right? Oh, guys, and then also another major downside is that we would have to pay our broker for that as well. The expectation is, I believe, $2.5 million over 10 years or something like that. Let me go back to those numbers. But either way, the commission on that is going to be like 90 grand. So my broker's really cool. Shout out Preston. But he's like, hey, I don't need the money today. Obviously, we could work something out. And they mentioned that in the very, very beginning too, where it's pretty common to pay the lessor's or the lessee's broker, and then the lessor's broker gets paid over time, maybe an annual payment here or maybe a monthly payment. I don't know. That all depends. But that's commonplace too. And considering that this is not a guaranteed lease, it's kind of a shot at what you can get, projections and everything. It makes it difficult to work out what exactly the commissions would be. But, not a moot point, but for this, who knows? But either way, again, that's more money that we would need to shell out. That $120,000 or $140,000, $150,000, that's probably closer to 180 grand plus, because over time we're going to need to pay that broker too. So that's probably $200,000 now that I'm thinking about it, which is another reason why I love this podcast, because it just gets me going and start thinking about things that I never thought about before. So that's basically the dilemma here. Now, I told the broker that I am interested. He viewed the place and they're redoing the numbers. So I'm curious to see at how much they're willing to work on it, or what they're going to shave off or add potentially. And then once I see those, I'll see if it's even close, if it's remotely something that we're interested in, and if so, maybe they're willing to negotiate on certain things. My big concern, guys, is that we're spending a ton of money and trusting these guys. We're handing over the keys to the Ferrari to these people, and that just makes me a little bit nervous. I feel like most entrepreneurs like that control, losing that control is, I'm not completely opposed to it. It's just foreign because just in the past, every time you give control up over something, I feel like I want to say never. It's easier to get screwed that way when you're not the one moving the needle, pushing, and doing everything. So I know that's a me problem. And something that I do need to work on. So do I want to go out and take a $200,000 bet on somebody else right now, especially a big corporation where their lawyer budget is more than our buildings are worth, right? So it's like at the end of the day, they could just back out and say, oh, screw it, see ya, it didn't work out, right? And they're like really not liable outside of whatever they had to put into the deal as far as like time, effort, and everything like that. So that's a major concern too. But I guess some more due diligence is definitely needed. I want to go check out that facility in Arrowhead and see exactly how that is laid out and walk it and just get a vibe for that facility. And then hopefully these guys come back with a little bit of some better terms and see if we can get it to shake out. Because if Big Daddy over here doesn't need to manage this property, Regis takes care of it all. We're getting checks for 30, 40 grand a month. 20, 30 grand a month, whatever it may be. That's a good way to live, especially 10 years. You really don't got to worry about in 10 years. And then honestly, who knows if it's crushing, it would be hard not to sell this one for sure, since it is a little bit of a unique asset. If it's printing money, the value of that building would be in the $2 million range, $2.5 million range. No problem. We bought it for 618 grand and, put 100 plus grand into it. So not too bad at all at the end of the day there. But that's basically that. So mildly interested. Hopefully they come back with some good terms and I can share that on the next week's episode. But I feel like I kind of touched base on that whole Thunderbird deal and the whole Regis thing. If nothing comes of it, which is more the likely scenario, at least we went through this process to see how they work. Maybe in the future there's another office space that would work for something. It's always just good to get some experience under our belt, get another contact in the Rolodex. So that's a wrap for this, guys. I hope you enjoyed listening to this podcast. If this is your first time, thank you again. If you liked this podcast, please leave me a review, 5 stars, write me a little note. If you hated this podcast and think I'm a dumbass, that's awesome. At least still leave me a 5-star review and just tell me how stupid I am. Or if you know somebody that would get a kick out of this, please send it to them. That's the best way. I am a schmuck. I don't do any promotion. Half of my friends don't even know I have a podcast. Half of my family, maybe more than half my family, doesn't know I have a podcast. So relying on you guys to help me out because I'm such a dummy. So send it to someone. Say, hey, listen to this dude. You might like it. And then also leave them a review too. If you guys want to get more updates than the weekly updates, follow me on Instagram, john.kleisch, JOHN.KLEISCH. I post pictures, stories on updates when I'm actually in the field and things like that, something that doesn't portray over a non-video podcast. And I do video, guys, FYI, and I know that Apple just released it to be on Apple or something like that. Haven't seen it yet, but I do video. So if you're ever online, and honest to God, I don't even know how to watch it. I don't think I've ever seen it. So you'll have to figure that one out on your own. Now I'm starting to blab, and it's getting hot in here. So let's get this thing wrapped up. Ladies and gentlemen, really appreciate you listening. Thank you very much. And on that note, until next time, take her easy.